Hey everyone, welcome back. Let's dive into a topic today that's it's pretty universal, something everyone experiences, grief and loss.
Mhm.
And we're going to be exploring this through a really interesting sermon by Pastor Amos. It's called Prayer for Comfort and Solace in Times of Grief and Loss.
Okay.
We're going to see how faith and prayer can maybe offer some solace during those really tough times.
It's such a fascinating aspect of just being human, like how
Yeah.
we look for something, some kind of meaning or comfort when we're going through those like really, really difficult things.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
For sure, those big questions.
Yeah.
And right away, right off the bat, Pastor Amos, he talks about the why. Like why even bother looking for comfort? And he talks about things like healing, strengthening your faith, even finding some kind of purpose in the midst of loss. It's more than just saying some words, right? It's like a much deeper need. Like
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It's definitely about acknowledging that something is like missing,
yeah.
that there's this void now,
Yeah.
and actively trying to figure out, okay, how do I navigate this? How do I even begin to heal?
Right. And he doesn't just say, here's the prayers. It's like he actually talks about what those prayers are supposed to do.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
he uses the words heard and understood, which I thought was really interesting
Mm-hmm.
because I mean, have you found that in your own experience, like those needs to be heard, to be understood, they get so much bigger when you're grieving.
Well, 100%.
Yeah.
Because it's it's one thing to, logically in your head know that like, oh, other people go through this,
Yeah.
but to really feel heard, to have someone or even something like a higher power to acknowledge that pain,
Yeah.
I think that can be incredibly validating.
Yeah.
That can be something that helps you actually start working through those feelings instead of just being like completely overwhelmed by them.
It's like it almost gives you permission to feel it because
Yeah.
you're not alone in it.
Yes. Exactly. Exactly. And he's got Pastor Amos has some really interesting examples from the Bible to kind of show what this looks like.
Right.
He talks about David's grief after losing his son Absalom, and Job's ability to keep going even though he went through just awful suffering.
I mean, these are stories that are thousands of years old, right? But they still resonate.
Right.
Like, why do you think that is? Why are we still talking about them?
Well, because I think they speak to something that we all share, like something universal about loss.
Yeah.
Grief, it's timeless.
Mm.
And these figures, they were considered close to God, right?
Right.
But they still went through it. They
Yeah.
still felt that same like rawness, those raw human emotions, like
Mm.
the anger, the despair, the questioning,
Right.
all of it.
It makes it okay for us to not be okay in a way, to not have it all figured out.
Exactly.
Just to sit with it.
Yeah, and I think that's huge, especially in the context of faith,
Yeah.
because he's not saying don't grieve.
Right.
He's saying this is real.
Yeah.
And here's maybe a way to move through it,
Yeah.
to find some peace, even when it's really dark.
It's like he almost gives you permission to feel it because you're not alone in it.
Yes, exactly. And he's got Pastor Amos has some really interesting examples from the Bible to kind of show what this looks like.
Okay.
He talks about David's grief after losing his son Absalom,
Mm-hmm.
and Job's ability to keep going even though he went through just awful suffering.
And what struck me about that is he doesn't just dwell on like the emotional and spiritual.
Right.
He actually gives you like practical things you can do.
Yes. This
Yeah.
is something I find so important. He goes beyond just the prayer itself.
Right.
And
Yeah.
talks about self-care, taking care of yourself and asking for help from other people. It's a much more well-rounded approach
Yeah.
to healing.
It's like he's acknowledging that grief, it's not just in your head, it's like it's your whole body.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And he even points to like he uses scripture to kind of back this up too.
Okay.
He reminds people that their bodies are temples of the Holy Spirit, right? So there's this connection between your physical well-being and your spiritual growth.
Yeah, it's like you can't separate the two.
Right.
Especially during those times when, you don't feel like taking care of yourself at all.
Absolutely. He's reminding us that it's not selfish to eat and to sleep and to actually take care of your needs.
Yeah.
That's actually a really important part of the process.
It's part of the healing. It's almost like saying, You're not meant to go through this alone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We are designed for connection. Like, we need that support.
Yeah.
We need to be able to lean on other people. And that can look like a lot of different things, you know?
Yeah.
It's not just, your immediate family. It's your friends, it's your community, it's your faith.
Right, that support system, whatever that looks like for you. And speaking of faith, I mean, he talks a lot about this idea of like trusting in God's plan,
Right.
even when things are just like at their darkest.
Yeah. That's a tough one.
Right.
I mean, for some people it could be a really difficult thing to wrap your head around, especially when you're dealing with a loss that just, feels so raw and so senseless.
Yeah.
But I think what he's getting at is this. It's this idea that even though we might not understand why we're going through something,
Yeah.
there's still a purpose to it.
It's like surrendering to something bigger than ourselves.
Yes, exactly. Like, we don't have to have all the answers.
Right.
And for a lot of people, I think that can actually be really comforting, you
Yeah.
know, to just let go of that need to control, to understand, and just trust. Trust that something's holding you, guiding you, even when it feels really dark.
Get a lifeline, in a way.
Exactly.
Mhm.
And you know what's interesting?
What's that?
Even though he's coming from, obviously a very Christian perspective,
Yeah.
the
Mhm.
core of what he's saying,
Mhm.
it applies to, I think it applies to everyone.
In what way?
Well, like this need to find comfort,
Yeah.
this need to find meaning when we're faced with loss. Like, that's not specific to any one religion or belief system.
Right. That's just part of being human.
Exactly. It's like
Mhm.
we're all looking for that's something bigger than ourselves to help us through those really, really difficult times.
It's like that common thread.
Yes.
The language might be different, but
Exactly.
the need is the same.
Exactly. And so, even if someone's not, maybe they don't identify as Christian, but maybe they can connect with this idea of like a higher power, or just some kind of like benevolent force in the universe.
Right. It's about finding what resonates with you and
Yes.
kind of like making it your own.
Absolutely. And that's one of the cool things about these conversations. It's not about like this is the right way and this is the wrong way.
Yeah.
It's about like what speaks to you.
Yeah, it speaks to you. What helps you is
Yeah.
personal.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's like we're all searching for that same source,
Right.
that wellspring.
I agree.
So we're imagining this wellspring of comfort.
Okay.
What does that look like for someone outside of this particular faith?
Right.
Like what are some ways that people tap into that, maybe in other spiritual practices or even like secular philosophies?
That's a good question. Well, I mean, you see it in things like medication, mindfulness, these practices that are really about like connecting with a sense of peace, like an inner stillness, even when everything around you feels really chaotic.
Yeah, like finding that center.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And maybe in a more secular setting, it might be, connecting with nature
Yeah.
or even through art, through music, things that kind of give you that sense of awe,
Yeah, it's something bigger.
Yeah, like you're a part of something bigger than yourself,
Yeah.
even if it's not, God in the traditional sense.
It always comes back to that connection, right? Like we're searching for meaning, we're searching for something to hold on to when things feel really, really shaky.
Absolutely, and I think that's what Pastor Amos does so well in this sermon. It's like he highlights that regardless of how you access that comfort, what you call it,
Right.
it's really about like tapping into something that's already there.
It's already there. It's not something you have to like earn.
Exactly. It's not about being like good enough. It's about being open to it.
I like that. So as we wrap up this deep dive here, what's the biggest thing you're taking away? Like what really stuck with you from Pastor Amos's message?
For me, it's this idea that maybe comfort, real comfort, it's not about getting rid of the pain,
Okay.
but it's about changing how we relate to it.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's not about pretending it's not there. It's about finding a way to carry it and maybe even finding some meaning in it.
Yeah, it's like growth, not erasure.
Yes, exactly.
And to our listener, if you were to give one piece of advice to someone who's grieving, what would it be? What little piece of wisdom from this conversation could you offer them? Keep that question with you today. It's a really powerful way to practice a little empathy, a little understanding. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. Until next time, take care.
Take care.